Hey guys, welcome back to another NFL video. Today we are going to be discussing the schedules and win totals for the AFC East division and answer the question of, who's going to end up at the bottom of that division this year and who will end up on the top. I think it's going to be a little bit different from last year. So we'll get into that. We've already covered all the NFC teams and the AFC North, and then we have two more videos after this to cover those last two divisions. So if you missed any of those previous videos, feel free to go look at those. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. If you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm right, in the comments down below. And we're just going to try and find any bets that we can be making, any edges that we can be making right now for before the season starts. So let's jump into it, guys. Okay, guys. So last year I had the Bills going to the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, that did not happen. But we are going to start with them first because they were the division champs last year and had such a great season. So last year, they went 13-4. Obviously, I already mentioned they're the division champions, but the impressive thing is that they swept their entire division except for a meaningless Week 18 game where the starters didn't play against the Patriots. So the Bills have dominated the AFC East since Tom Brady obviously left, and Tom Brady was dominating the division before that. The Dolphins have just never gotten there. They've made playoff flashes, but they just have not had any success. I think the Bills could have 9 wins and probably still win this division, but I do think they're going to have more than 9 wins. I'm just saying that these teams below them, they haven't shown much promise. That they just don't put up the fight that they need to be able to win that division. And I don't see that changing this year. The Patriots and the Jets are ascending teams, whereas I see the Dolphins as a descending team. So in the next couple of years, we might see one of those teams challenge the Bills for this division. Now, before you start grumbling about where exactly I put the wins and losses, if you've seen my other videos, you know that we're not trying to find the exact outcomes of every single matchup. We are right, we can do that through the rest of the season, like week to week. Right now, we're just trying to find the average, like a median win total, to see if there's any edges on these early Vegas line futures for the win totals or any other division bets that we want to make. So that's what we're doing today. Since the Bills had 5 division wins last year, we're going to give them 4 because we're just trying to establish a floor when it's a team as good as this. Now, the Bills' schedule is pretty easy due to the fact that they are playing the NFC South this year, and they're only facing 6 playoff teams from last year, plus the Bengals. So in those 7 tougher matchups, I'm going to give them 4 losses and 3 wins because, once again, we're trying to establish a floor. So I do think they could win more games than that, but we're trying to find that floor. And then the 4 remaining teams are just so easy. They should be easy wins for the Bills. Maybe the Falcons give them some trouble because I do think they're going to be making a playoff push this year. But I think it's safe to give them 3 wins here and just 1 loss. So this establishes a floor for the Bills of 10, and that floor is solid. The line is at 11.5, juiced to the over. So the only value here would be to bet over 12.5 for plus money. Which I can't bring myself to do that, even though they did clear it barely last year. So I'm staying away from this for now, but if I see the odds on these lines change, then I'm definitely going to be slamming it. If I see them at 10.5 for like minus 130, even minus 140, I have to bet that. So jumping into the Patriots, I do think that they are an exciting team. I think Drake May was awesome. They only had 4 wins last year, but obviously Drake May only started the last 7 games or something like that. And he played really well in those games. I felt like we saw definitely their next franchise quarterback, in my opinion. But we'll have to see how that goes as in this season. I think they need to kind of needs to prove it in this season, but I would even give them another season after this to kind of get there. So they had a very, very rough season. Everyone was expecting that. They were at the bottom of their division. I do expect them to move up higher. They're only facing 4 playoff teams from last year. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic on the Patriots this year. Last year, they technically had 2 division wins with that meaningless Week 18 game that we talked about earlier against the Bills, where the starters were not playing. So I'm just going to give them 2 division wins again. I think they can at least get that. And then there's 3 playoff teams left on their schedule after taking out the Bills. So there's also the Falcons and the Bengals, who might be making playoff pushes this year. So of those 5 playoff matches, I'm going to give them 4 losses and 2 wins to stay on the safe side of things a little bit. And then this is where the Patriots could go on a huge run if they really put things together this year. they've got 6 matchups against mid to bad teams, and they could easily win all 6, in my opinion, if they end up being really, really good. So this leaves the Patriots with 10 wins. I think that is really crazy considering their 4 wins last season. If the Patriots play badly, I could see them losing up to 3 more games here, but I could also see them winning up to 1 more game. So the Vegas line is 8.5. It's juiced to the over. I do think that they can get over 8.5. They are a little bit questionable. Obviously, I said they could lose up to 3 more games, but we're not getting any plus money on it. It is a little juiced. Could they easily get 7 wins? Yeah, I think they could get 7. I think they could get 8. I also think they could get 9, 10, maybe even 11. So this for me is going to be a bet. If you want to stay away, you can. It is a little bit riskier. Let's talk about the Dolphins next, even though I do think they could lose the division this year. The Dolphins are a huge question mark because when Tua is healthy and on the field, they look like a completely different team than when he is off the field. They're an offensive juggernaut with him on the field. And with him off the field, they're one of the worst teams in the league. So despite not playing very well last year, they still managed to have an 8-9 season. And so they had the 3 division wins last year. I'm just going to give them those 3 wins this year. Because I think this team is descending, we want to kind of find their ceiling. So I think their ceiling is 3 division wins for this year. There's still 5 playoff teams on the Dolphins schedule, so I'm going to give them 3 losses and 5. Sorry, I'm going to give them 3 losses and 2 wins out of those 5 games, since they only had 1 playoff team victory last year. And then the Falcons and Bengals should be better teams. They're making playoff pushes. The other 4 teams are bad. So I'll just give them the 2 losses against the better teams and then the 4 wins against the worst teams. So this puts the Dolphins at a win total of 9, but I see a range of like 7 to 10 here for them. The Vegas line is set at 8.5 and juiced to the under. I don't see any clear value here on either side of the line, but I did already bet this. Early in the season before the draft, I bet this under 8.5 wins. So just letting you know that has been bet, but I'm not necessarily recommending that to you because of that heavy juice. The Jets, they tried to sell their souls for a playoff run 2 years ago. That did not pay off. And people got really, really burned on the Jets 2 years in a row now. And so I think they are a little bit too low on the Jets, and especially with Justin Fields at quarterback. I like Justin Fields. If you watch my last video, I talked about Justin Fields a little bit, and I think he's a decent quarterback. I'm not saying he's elite, but he is middle of the pack. He definitely deserves to be a starter somewhere. And the Steelers did try to keep him, but I think he just felt snubbed. And, Jets offered him more money as well. So he went over there. I think that they're going to have a decent season, but they have a really tough schedule. So they had 2 division wins last year. I think that it's fair to give them 2 again. There's 4 playoff teams left on their schedule. The Falcons, the Jaguars, and the Bengals also should be making playoff pushes this year. So in those 7 games, I'm going to give the Jets 2 wins and 5 losses because I want to be really harsh on them and see where we end up. And then these last 4 games, the Jets should be able to win at least 3 of those games. So that's what we'll give them here is 3 wins, 1 loss. So this puts the Jets at 7 wins. The line is 5.5 and heavily juiced to the over. So Vegas thinks they're going to land on 6. I could see them winning up to 2 more games and winning so that ceiling for me in my mind is 9. And on the low end of the range, I think 5 is their absolute floor. So we're catching the line here right at the floor. I couldn't help myself. I paid the juice on the 5.5, but I'm probably also going to bet an alt line over on these Jets, like probably over 6.5 and over 7.5, and try to catch them. I think we had them at 7. So for sure, I'm betting the 6.5. And then I might bet over 7.5. So let's go over the best bets. My best bet for this division is going to be the Jets over that 5.5 wins, but it's heavily juiced. It was 150 the last time I saw. So you could parlay that with another win total from another team that you really like that's also carrying a lot of juice. Or you can just bump that line up to 6.5, see if you can get yourself some plus money payout for that. And then I have a sprinkle bet. So over 7.5 wins gets you plus 200. Honestly, I would like a little bit better of a payout than that. I would probably want like plus 300. But I obviously already took this at plus 200 because I wrote it down. if you can get over 6.5 for plus 150 or plus 200, I would definitely be taking that. That's it, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. My picks and analysis is always free to you. So I appreciate the little free things that you can do for me, like liking, subscribing, and leaving a tiny comment down below. I also love to talk about football. So I'm happy to give you my opinions on things. I'd love to see if you think I'm wrong about stuff. I probably am wrong about a lot of stuff, just like everybody else is. But yeah, go ahead and let's start creating discussions about this type of stuff, because that's where this gets really fun, is connecting with other people who are really into this same kind of stuff. Thanks, guys.